Welcome back to Life in the New Normal podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Okay, so today we got a doozy, Dena.
Tell me, what's the doozy?
Well, I am going to need your help through this one today. No joke, because, people may be thinking that I'm talking out of my ass about a lot of these topics, and today I'm really talking out of my ass. So,
Okay.
So every day, Coach Dena sends me our little daily inspirational videos that we post on all of our social platforms. And they're so awesome. And every morning, I swear to God, they're focused directly at me because I get the lesson every morning. Thank you very much.
Whoopsie.
And then, sorry, not sorry, right? But so my job is to then take that, post it on the platforms, and come up with some sort of little summary.
If you don't let the past die, it's not gonna let you live. And what I mean by that is, if somebody has hurt us, somebody has disappointed us, people have made us frustrated, people don't hold up their end of the bargain. You get where I'm going with that, right? So the subtle change and profound impact would be, do not become your narrative. Do not become your pain. Do not become your sadness. So you have to shift and change that narrative. So if you want to leave that behind you and you don't want to be a victim of your circumstances anymore, you are literally going to have to put your past to rest in order to move forward.
So I had a tough time with this one because we were talking about, she's talking in that clip, of course, about what not to do, right? How to not live your old pain, not live your old fear. And that makes complete sense for moving forward in your life and living an inspired life and the vision that you want to live. But what was unclear to me is, how the fuck do you do that sometimes? How do you let go of all that old painful narrative? So we started talking, and we thought it might be a good idea to expound a little bit on that today, right?
Yeah, I think it's important. And I think we could all use it. And listen, it's not as cut and dry as, let your past die. It's a 60-second video, right? But what I feel and what I've learned in 26 years of therapy and many, many things is that if you haven't realized now, the narrative that happens in your head tends to manifest in your life, right? So
Yes.
I can give you a difference. I have a family member who we had very similar situations in our childhood. I went positive route. Half of that was a choice, and half of that, thankfully, I was born with. And the other one went more anger and more victim route, right?
The other
and
person.
So
Yeah.
yes, the other person. And so now when we speak, she unfortunately has become that pain, that story, that anger, that hate, that resentment, that victimness. And so her life is filled with toxicity. Unfortunately, she's got addiction issues. And so what I've learned is that it doesn't serve you to keep that narrative going.
Totally.
Right? So if you get the information, so if I sit here and I say to you, my childhood was so tough, and all of this is true. I've been molested. I've been raped. I have a parent who went in and out of prison. My mom was bipolar, and she was physically abusive. I could go on and on and on. If you were to look at me and I were to carry that pain, I think I'd be a very different person with a very different energy. And so I feel like if some of you have access and a luxury to go to therapy, that is key. But if you don't, I feel that meditation and positivity and a gratitude journal, writing things out, things like that is very helpful. What works best and easiest, what I have found, and this is kind of a new one for me. So the other day I got a specific text from a specific person that I was just talking about. And it just went in me hard about things that I've been accused of that I have no idea what this person is talking about, and then accusing me of faking all of my illnesses, and I'm just a follower. And then I literally, before I went down to the whole text, because I don't read them all now, I go, oh, I've seen these episodes. This is a rerun. I don't want to deal with reruns anymore. I want to watch something new, something positive. So what would be the point in engaging with somebody who's so invested with not hearing me? Right? So then I get upset, or I get frustrated, or I get resentful, because then it stops me dead in my tracks. And then in the past, I would so try to justify myself and be like, that's not true. That's not fair. What are you talking about? When did that? But this person doesn't care about any of that. So you ask yourself before you open that closed door, because that is a closed door. Thankfully, I didn't open it. But you ask yourself, what am I hoping this is going to turn out to be?
Right.
Because if you look at the history, this person has always shown up as the same person. What we're guilty of is having hope that each time they might be different because they're a family member, a mother, a father, a sibling, and we don't want to give up on them.
Well, right. That's what I was going to say, is what we're specifically talking about are these triggers that pop up, right? Like somebody will do something and all of a sudden you feel that hot flare go up inside you and you feel compelled to react or respond or whatever. And it's that moment of like, wait, hold on, let's take a step back here. Like I had a situation last week where someone triggered me in this way because they made a decision that affected me without bothering to ask me about it first. And I found out from someone else. So I was like, that's neat. And my first reaction was to get upset and angry, call that person, have it out. And I went, you know what? What is the point? That person has always been this way. They are not going to change. I just need to know this is how it is. It's going to be fine. And then I need to figure out how to navigate that. Does it drastically affect me? No. But it's a trigger for me because I feel that this is a repeat pattern from things that I grew up with, right? So when I'm not heard, I talked about this on the last episode. It's like my trigger is feeling like I'm not heard. And I, snap to real fast and the claws come out and I start defending myself. So when you grow up with someone in your family, someone who means a lot to you, doesn't have to be a family member even, right? A friend, whoever, who has that really strong influence on you. And maybe they're highly critical, maybe they are just don't take your needs into account when you're growing up. It seems to me, and what I've learned, and this is where I want you to interject on this, that when you grow up feeling as if your needs don't matter, what you start doing, as we've discussed in other episodes, is you start to perform. You start to, maybe that performance looks... People please. Maybe that looks like overachieving in school. Overachieving at work because they praise you for the way you look, the job that you get, accomplishments, things that aren't about who you are. It's more about things that you do, right? So that is something that I've had to learn along the way, is like separating those two has been work for me in adult relationships, right?
Sorry, go on.
No,
I was going to say,
because
can I ask you a question?
Sure, but I always feel like, it's more of like that a friendship or a relationship sometimes feels transactional to me, because I feel like, my part is to do all of this so that they will be happy with me. And it takes a lot to sort of separate that, right? And go, oh, wait.
For sure. And not to people please and not to be attached. But I guess the question would be, and it's not to make light, it's actually just kind of having a sense of humor, is that, does it shock you? It's interesting at this point when we're 50 or whatever, and we've known family members for 50 years. Why do we still become so shocked when they show up how they've always shown up? Right?
Girl.
So the responsibility lies on you, me, the other person, because they're doing what they've always done. So it's up to us on how we respond to what they're doing. So for, let's say, that situation, for instance, is that you just walk away from it for a while unless it's going to affect you in that immediate moment. And it is what it is. And if there's no point in bringing it up,
Right.
don't bring it up. And if you're going to get misunderstood, that's okay, because if you got to protect your peace, at any cost, right? And so I feel like too is you have to figure out, not just you, all of us, we have to figure out where that people pleasing started, right? So mine would be, I was very promiscuous. So the only way that I got attention was from sexual stuff, because when I was being touched inappropriately by people and, situations, and then how that worked for me is my power was in my sexuality.
Right.
I could get anything I wanted is if I was like, I can do this, I can do that. And then cut to when I got married, I married someone who was not sexual. And so isn't it interesting, my whole life, the only way I got power was to be sexual, and I married someone who had no interest in having sex.
But do you feel like maybe he saw you for actually who you were rather than that sex that you always gave to people, that thing, whatever it was?
For sure. Which that I think has made me marry. That is why I didn't know he was not as sexual until I was like 2 years into the marriage, right? But part of me thought that, right? But the other part of me was like, isn't it interesting that now I have to learn a new way to communicate with people, because I was always taking the easy way out. So all of the tactics that I had before to get what I wanted or to need what I needed wasn't working on him, because he didn't want sex.
Right.
Or, you mean
just being flirtatious
stuff, or
in general?
No, but like women know, or people know, like when you say, hey baby, tonight you want to do this, but can you get me this on the way home? It didn't work with this person because he had no interest in any of that.
Yeah.
And so for me then, I didn't know where my people pleasing was happening, because I had to start all over from scratch, right? So then what would happen is, when I was getting rejected, that was triggering me, right? Because on top of needing attention, and that I've always gotten it in ways that I wanted it, and now all of a sudden from the person who's supposed to give it to me the most and want me the most, nothing.
Right.
And it's a trigger every single time for me when I would try and I would be shut down, and I would be told I was being ridiculous, or I was being whatever it was. So then I slapped a narrative onto it of like, I'm not attractive, I'm too heavy, he doesn't want me, I'm disgusting, and all of that wasn't true. He was just stressed, and he was not a super sexual person that I've been with in the past. And so now that I look at it in hindsight, that whole marriage was a trigger to me.
Right. Well, and I've certainly had whole long relationships that were a trigger to me too, but the question is, how do we keep attracting them, right? And how do we
you mean why do we keep attracting them? The reason why you keep attracting them. Well, okay, so I think this can be different for anyone, and this is just our opinion on how it works, right? But I think that it's an energy thing too, is that we've always, in our head, we always go, oh, I've always gotten this kind of guy, or I've always gotten this kind of thing. We have to stop that narrative and go, okay, but what if this came at me in a different way? How would I handle it? I think we sit where it's comfortable. And although it's frustrating, we can sit and bitch about something, but at least it's better in our mind sometimes to be with the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that whole that which is incomplete is destined to repeat thing, right? So you're with the devil you know because you're too comfortable, even whether you recognize
you're putting off the
not.
inevitable.
But you might not even recognize it. That's what I found after waking up and looking back at years of relationships and going, well, shit, I don't want to go through that.
Well, yeah, but think about it. When you're with the devil,
because some of those devils were hot.
Yeah, right. Sexy. And then, but you're with the devil, right? And you're with the devil, but you're putting off the inevitable because you're too afraid to be with the devil you don't know.
Right.
And so what we fail to realize is we have the tools inside of all of us to get through that, right? So if you think about it, it is so important to go, before you start into something new. So let's just say, if you want to share something with somebody that's frustrating, it means that you're seeking help for it because it makes you uncomfortable. It's different when you come at someone and you just bitch and then you don't want to complete anything, right? So meaning like you, because there are people who all they want to do is bitch, bitch, bitch. And then if you offer them a solution, in my experience, not everyone wants a solution, and I'm guilty of that. People just want to be heard. They just want to vent, but they have no interest in changing their narrative. And so I just leave them where they're at.
Right.
Because I'm not going to shift them. So the same would go for us, is that what I've been practicing, I think is very important, is that I no longer repeat a bunch of stuff to people about what has happened if it's negative. Because there's no need to keep that story going.
Right.
Right? And if you can shift it in your head, it's not going to take up a lot of real estate for a long period of time because you're allowing yourself to experience it and let it go. Experience it and let it go. So how you let it go is you go, okay, Dena, this is not yours to hang on to. It is frustrating. And then you look like, should I have called that person? Should I have told that person what I said? Because I've done it before and they haven't listened or whatever. Let me try a new thing today. What if I just go and I sit outside for 5 minutes, I take a breath, and I come back in and see how I feel about something?
Well, that
Because
moment
usually 10 minutes. Sorry.
is good. No. I was just going to say, usually that moment you're talking about where you're sitting in it and you're trying to make that decision, it's easier said than done as to, do I take a step back or not, because you feel compelled to move forward in a certain way, right? And what is working for me that I'm trying to implement these days is, like you mentioned a little while ago, pinpointing that moment of, well, where did this start? This feels familiar to me. Where did this start? Oh, this used to happen to me when I was a kid, but differently. Okay, this isn't that situation. Let me just breathe on this for a minute.
But why do you think
right?
you, in general, so I'm just going to go in on you because why not? We're
I
friends.
figured you would.
So why do you think you, Ashley, why do you think it still has such a hold on you? Sometimes you could feel it in your voice and your disposition, and it shifts.
Yeah.
And you may become this intense person that you don't realize you're becoming.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we feel unheard. And then when we feel unheard, we get frustrated. And then when we get frustrated, now what we've done is we've become that moment.
Right.
We've allowed that moment to take us over.
Yes.
We've allowed that moment. So I'll give you, for instance, when those texts were coming, I wrote back, I was like, you, blah, 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 blah. And then I walked away and I didn't send it. And then I went back and I re-looked at it and I was like, oh, that's so good you did not send that.
Yeah.
And then I would edit it. And then when I walk back, and then I would look back and then I was like, and then by the time I was done, I was like, it's not even worth it. But at least I got it out.
Right. And I also find that for me, particularly, if I am allowed to just sit within my own space in my own head and stew, it doesn't get better very easily on its own. I can try, but me physically, like getting myself out and even just going and getting coffee and interacting with somebody else differently shakes me out of it.
It shifts. Yes.
And
It's
I'm
the
like,
course
oh,
correction.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's just something little like that. Not that these moments happen very often, but when they do, I've recognized that I have to physically do something to move myself, get myself into a headspace that's different, because otherwise the narrative just keeps going and going and going, and it's like, stop it.
What is the most helpful, do you think, in that situation? If you do physical movement or if you sit and try to figure it out?
Not sit and try to figure it out for me. To me, it's just literally get out of that energy. Break the energy. For me, it's
that's
listen to
perfect.
something else, watch a television show. Like I said, even walking down the street, talking to the barista for 2 seconds is like, it just makes you focus on something different, right? And that breaks it up for me differently. And then all of a sudden I recognize, oh wait, I'm in this world. I'm not living up here.
Totally.
You know?
Well, and but majority of our life we do live up here, so it is how we filter the world, right? And so I think it's so important, if you don't want to keep attracting that, you have to figure out, in a healthy situation for that child, what would have somebody hearing you looked like? What would have, somebody not saying nice things to you, people sticking up for you, right? So if you picture that, what if you started doing that for yourself, in yourself, meaning internally? Like you talk to yourself, your inner child, your shadow working, whatever it is anyone is into. Because I always go, it's okay, baby girl, we got this. Like, I got this.
Same.
And which is really helpful in these times, because I think what we're all figuring out and we're all waking up to is we were told how to think, what to do, what's right, what's wrong, and then as we get older and we open up our minds, right? We're like, well, wait a minute. I'm allowed to think the way I want to think. What was happening for me was like, oh, well, I'm not supposed to do that because blah, 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 blah. So then if somebody didn't match up to that, it was literally like, well, that was wrong. Well, no, that's wrong for you, but it doesn't mean it has to be wrong for me.
Yeah.
Right? But then again, we all have to get into the habit of not justifying ourselves to people. So just because you don't get it doesn't mean I have to explain why I'm doing it. There's a difference if you're curious or if you're attacking. Right? Yeah. And so in my experience with family members or certain things, it's always accusatory. So when something comes at me energetically accusatory, I literally will try to justify myself in the past.
Of course.
Now it's like, well, wait a minute. What? No, I'm not even engaging in any of this, nor do I need to say it to anyone. Yeah. It's just insanity that I used to allow that to affect me. Yes.
You start to recognize the types of people that are going to do that to you, right? And that are coming at you in that way, and the ones that, I don't know, don't appreciate you for just who you are and what you bring to the table. Because I don't tend to get that same type of dialogue from friends who do. And if they say something, it's usually a misunderstanding, in which case you want to explain the whys and you want to work it through.
Yeah, that's different, though. I'm talking about something different. So, like, when somebody's coming at you in an aggressive way.
Right, yes. but delineating, like recognizing which people those are is something you have to get to a point of, right?
Well, because if you have a history...
Right, when you've been drawing these people into your life because it feels familiar and you don't recognize, and then all of a sudden you look around you and you go, shit, I've collected some friends that I think are using me for this, right? Yeah. Then all of a sudden you have to kind of go, all right, well, then now it's time for me to start, recognizing this behavior a little differently. And
also, what did you do to attract them? So are you offering yourself for a bunch of things? And that's also what we have to look at.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like when you're performing, when you come from this place, if you think you have to do things to win people's attention, all of a sudden you collect all these people and you've set yourself up that way.
Yes.
Because you've done all this shit for them and all of a sudden you don't want to anymore.
Right? And people wonder why I was hanging out with kids.
I'm tired.
I'm so tired.
Right.
And this is why I like hanging out with kids. Totally. Because, kids don't ask for much other than more dopamine, right? They just want to be playful. It's not too serious. You don't have to hear all the heavy stuff, right? But I feel like now it's so interesting. I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold in the world with so many people waking up and taking care of themselves. I sometimes get concerned that it will, if in the way it's delivered, we don't want miscommunications, right? No. So it's not like I'm sitting there going, well, I'm sorry, that day I have to do this, and this because it's my self-care day. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not like, oh, the world's surrounded, revolves around me. It's more like, let's just go with your situation or your circumstances. You have to say to yourself, is it for my better health or my peace to engage in this kind of conversation because it seems like it's a rerun and a rerun and a rerun. So
Right.
no, that's not it. Is it easy in that moment? No, but will it get easier the more you practice? Yes, it becomes very easy to you and second nature.
Right.
The key is about all of this is we could spew out so much stuff that's helpful, but a lot of people aren't ready to do the work. A lot of people shy away from, if you don't give them some things like a quick fix, they don't want to listen to the books, the podcasts, have these hard conversations. They just want it to be easy. And I too sometimes would like things just to be easy.
Well, that brings up a very good point too, of like sometimes we mistake for like, oh, this would be so much easier if I had an easier girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, partner, whatever, right? And sometimes it's a mismatch, sure, but sometimes it's that we got to work on that communication.
Well, yeah, because the grass is
right.
Yeah, the grass is never greener. It's just a different shade of green, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like whatever is important in your compromising. So it's like for me, would I date someone who smokes? No, that's a closed door, right? Or would I date someone who is not spiritual, doesn't believe in God? No, that's a no for me because that's a big part of who I am in my life, right? And so does it take longer to find someone? Probably. Is it worth the wait? Yes. But a lot of people don't like to be alone, so they'll jump into something and then they'll fall in love with the potential and then they get down the thing. Or with a job, if a certain job seems easier and a boss seems nicer, sometimes we go with that easier job because we think it's with the devil we know and we've been there before. And then we get in it and we're like, oh my God, I fucked up. Because you tried taking the easy way out.
And back to trusting your gut, right? What we talked about last week is we have those little feelings when these things rise up. And sometimes, I have been guilty of ignoring that feeling in the past, for sure, in jobs, in projects, girlfriends.
So,
because you fall in love with the potential. You do.
For sure. And then if you think about it, we could do little exercises, right?
Oh,
where it's like you could close your eyes and you could just ask yourself, what I've been doing lately is with the TV is I watch a show and I trust my gut and I think of what's going to happen next. And I'm usually always right. And I'm like, but automatically my energy would be like, don't go in that door. Don't do this. Don't do that. And like you talk in your head on a show, right? But why don't you do the same for yourself? Why don't you do the same for yourself in the sense of, hey girl, like, don't go down that road. You've been down there before. You know where that gets you. Like, you know where you're going. Like, da-da-da-da. So
you're going to get bludgeoned with an axe.
Right? But it's like, once you become aware, you become responsible. And one time a friend of mine, you would know who this is, I said that exact quote. Once you become aware, you become responsible. And she goes, ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. You know exactly who that is.
I do know. Yeah.
Right. And so we were 20. I know we were 26 at the time. So it's funny because I think when I started therapy and I started becoming aware, and then I would go back to the therapy, he would look at me and go, but you know better. And I was like, you're fucking right, I do. So he held me accountable. And he made me do the right thing, even if it wasn't what I wanted to do, right? And so then what I've been learning is to check my moral compass, and then I check, like, how would I feel? And yeah, after a while, you're just going to be like, no, yes, thank you. Oh my God, you're welcome. Like, I think it's so important to get excited about doing the work, because what kind of cool new people are you going to bring into your life with this cool new energy? And what kind of like, think about this. When I separated in 2020 from my relationship and the world was over for me, I'm in a foreign country, I'm by myself, it was just doom, right? And then a person called me out on my stuff and made me give a date of my moving, right? And when I moved, everything in my head, those narratives that I kept going in my head, not one of them turned out to be true. And not only did I move into a place where it's like a palace, I would have never dared to dream to ask for something so grand and so amazing, right? And look at what the universe did when I didn't follow the old way of doing things. When I didn't just sit in my shit I was already there 10 years. And then you very graciously, when I was in the hospital, said, I'm going to pull a Dena on a Dena. When are you leaving? And I was like, what? I'm in a hospital dress. Like, you're like, give me a date. There's no such thing as a goal without a deadline. And I was like, damn it. Damn it.
I do remember
And so
that.
I was like, and then I was like, fine, September 19th, because, September 20th, and then I moved on the 19th, right? But if I would have still stuck to my old narrative, I would have gotten a tiny studio in the city in Rome. I would have stayed close by my ex because of the dogs, and I wanted
Right.
so graciously to share them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no.
moved into the mountains, and then I realized I'm not sharing my dogs. And then I realized that look at everything that I've created.
Yeah, you've got a
And
nice
if I were to,
space.
well, thank you. If I were to be, if I talk to my little kid inside me, and if I look at my home the way it is everything I wished I had as a kid. I'm like a kid with adult money.
Yeah.
And so I get to make my room magical, my apartment magical. There is no rules. Like, why does the food have to go in the cabinets? Why can't I see them outside of the cabinets? Why can't I do things? And then I've just started living my life in that way. And all of a sudden, people will creep in and remind me of who I used to be. And I'm like, no. I'm not going down that road again. And so I don't always announce to people I've changed. I just try to let people see if they're going to acclimate to the new me. And a lot of people aren't interested. And that can be hurtful. And you have to be willing to let go of a lot of that too,
Yeah.
right? Because letting go a lot of that, we're like, but I love that person and we had such a good time.
Yeah.
And they served the purpose they were supposed to then.
Right.
And that's what's, the difficult part about change is we know that there's going to be some loss.
Yep.
And we know that we're going to have to leave some people behind. And I'm guilty of not wanting to leave people behind. So then I feel like I can fit everyone on my boat and we can all escape together. Like, it's like, dude, you want to go where I'm going. Like, believe me, you're going to be bummed that you're here if I go. And I have to remember that not everyone is ready and not everyone wants to.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's
definitely
humbling.
happened. Yeah, it is. And it's I don't even know what the word is, not awe-inspiring, but it's like interesting to sort of wake up to, because it shows you how much you've changed. It shows you how much you've grown, and it's good.
Well, and think about this. If you look around right now, this is everything you've created. Are you happy with it? Are you happy with where you are right now?
Yeah.
Are you happy with... and that's what I'm saying is, in general, people need to take stock of what's going on.
Right.
Meaning, look around you. Start here first.
That's right.
You think everything's all disorganized, you think this, and we all blame other people? Let me tell you something. I used to blame everything on Marco because that was the first time as an adult I had lived with another person. And so I was like, you're so messy, you're so this.
Wow.
Yeah, living alone, I'm like, I was half of that mess.
Well, yeah.
Right? Very humbling. And I have apologized to him. I mean, I left that apartment very clean, don't get me wrong, but I have apologized to my part. Did I get an apology back? No. Do I expect one back? No. But as long as my side of the street is clean, I'm okay with that. I don't need to educate everyone I come in contact with.
Right,
I don't
right,
need
exactly.
to teach everyone how to treat me. You don't need to teach everyone how to treat you as long as you know how to treat yourself good. As long as you know how to make up your boundaries. As long as you know how to communicate for yourself.
Right. Well, I think teaching people that are going to be around you all the time the way you want to be treated is important, though. I mean, that doesn't mean that it's going to work on everybody, and some people may be close to you, some
No, for
may
sure. I'm
not.
just talking about people you want to invest in. But,
Yes.
so definitely that's for people we want to invest
Right.
in. And then what you have to realize is, how did you start that friendship? And has that person's journey been similar to you side by side? Because I always just assume in my head, because I'm growing, most of the people around me are. And that's not always true. So you know how sometimes you have conversations with friends and they can get deep and amazing, and then other times they're just light and cool, and then other times you haven't talked to someone for a while and you just pick up, that is when you're feeling the most non-attachment and judged to things. And so if you can remember that about yourself and just take things lighter, because the seriousness and the agitation and the trigger, that's a you problem. That's not a them problem, because they don't know all your triggers, especially if they don't know you that well.
Yep.
And that's how they've always run their life before you, and that's how they're always going to run their life after you. And you have to be okay with that.
Yep. Some of them do know the triggers, by the way.
True, but some of them don't want to do the work and they don't care.
They're never going to do the work.
No, and that's okay for them.
That's when it's on me, on you, on everybody to just go, this isn't worth disturbing my peace.
Well, and think about it. The reason why we fight for them for so long is we don't want to lose them, right? And then we already know that now we've unrung that bell, there's no turning back. So unfortunately, when I'm with you, mom, dad, sister, brother, whatever, and I've seen this story before, right? Unfortunately, I know now that I'm changing, this is no longer going to work for me. So in my brain, sometimes it's like, oh shit, how are we going to figure this out? Oh my God, I can't leave my sister, my brother, my boyfriend, what about this? What? No. Just start moment by moment, because I think we overwhelm ourselves and then we become so inundated that we then get paralyzed, right? So in this way, it can be painful because you're like, fuck, now that I've had all this therapy and now that I'm awake and now that I can't engage in that like I used to. So it means you don't have to, but you just change the subject very quickly. Or if someone's saying something disrespectful, you say, oh my God, did you hear about? And then you go, oh, I'm so sorry I interrupted, right? Because I think it's important, because a lot of people won't feel that when you get really good at it.
Yes.
So if those people are still going to be in your life, learn to navigate your life around that to where it doesn't stop you in your tracks. It doesn't shift who you are. The two things I think that are the most important, the subtle changes and the profound impacts that are the most important. One, PMP, protect my peace, right? Because I think that is the most important, is to protect your peace. And then the other, the ADHD got my brain, is like, where did that other little nugget go? So it's to protect my peace. And then the other, this one's very important. Don't allow people to take you out of your character. So I get the most frustrated when I have allowed someone to trigger me so bad that I'm going to turn around and go, are you freaking kidding me? Seriously. Like, oh my goodness. Like, and then I get mad at myself and then it goes into, and now it's just like, you know what? I don't have the bandwidth for all of this all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why I like to spend a lot of time alone, but that's okay, right? Because I'm still decompressing a lot of things that I've gone through or that I do go through, right? And so I think if someone's going to start anywhere, the number one thing would be protect your peace. And what does that look like? And so I'm not saying, because we can all get very touchy and very like, you can't talk to me like that. No, that's the wrong way to go about it. You just start learning about yourself. You start getting tools for yourself. You start seeing what this looks like for you. You lean into it, right? Because you have to do the work behind it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
and
but
so
I
think,
like number two, though. Don't let them take you out of your character, because that's something you can actively be mindful of doing. Right.
Well, yes. And then when you do it again, you're like, ooh, and then it becomes so, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm not falling for this one, buddy. Like, because people totally bait you. And they want to bait you so that they can justify why they behave the way they behaved.
Yes, indeed.
And so I'm just like, you know what? And every time I would get a call from one of my brothers, I would start to get nervous and I would cry because I never thought that I had an option to not pick up the phone. And that's where I used to get stuck in. I was a victim for a very long time. So it was like the berating and the judging and the criticizing. And it was like constantly wanting him to see my worth. Right. And it just was never like, it was never enough. Like I was never enough. And then I was like, but wait, do I even value and respect that that person's opinion, that I'm trying to live up to what they think is worth something? Like, oh my God, girl. And I was like, Queen, you need to, no, 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 no. And that's okay. No judgment against them or that, because they had a similar childhood but we all chose very different healing journeys. And
Yeah.
that's where it becomes different. And so I've had to release some people from my family. Is it easy? No. Is my life more peaceful? Yes. Do I feel
Yeah.
better with my health? Yes.
Right. Well, there's your answer, right? Sadly.
Totally.
Yeah.
I know.
And
So
likewise, I've had to release certain people from my life too, that it's not worth it when you're just stressed all the time and you're in these situations, or someone constantly comes at you in ways that you've asked them not to, or whatever it is, I mean, we've all been there, but having the courage to stand up for yourself and to recognize, that's what it brings us back to the beginning, is like recognizing the difference in what does this person want from me. Are they with me because they really value my friendship and who I am, or are they wanting to get something from me, or are they critical, are they judgmental,
Yeah.
are they constantly saying things to bring me down, all these
What's their
things.
moral compass?
What's their moral
Have the
compass?
same, like do we have things in common?
Right.
And then you also have to see, why are you wanting to be friends with them and people please them? What is it about
Exactly.
them that makes you want to people please? Like it, because maybe that narrative that we've attached to so many things doesn't belong to certain people.
Right.
But we've slapped it onto everyone because anyone is a potential person that could give us praise or attention or something, right? And so
Maybe.
I remember when,
If they have
well,
the
it just
emotional tools to do that.
for
Some
sure,
people
but a lot
just didn't grow up with that and don't know how to give it either.
for sure.
Right.
And what I'm saying is with that is what I'm saying is that when we're in the midst of people pleasing, we don't know the difference to look for someone or to not look for someone, right? And so that's where I was coming from
Gotcha.
in that sense. And so I think it is so powerful once you've sort of woken up a little bit and going, wait, I'm allowed to say no, or like, wait, I didn't know that for a very long time until I
Right.
started therapy. I didn't know that I didn't have to always engage with the family drama and always not justify myself. I didn't know that I didn't have to engage in all of that.
Right. Yeah.
No one
I
ever
didn't
gave me
either. Are you
permission.
kidding? I mean, our family growing up, the healthy way to communicate was to argue. Like, we're used to screaming and just taking everything to a fever pitch and arguing it out. Do any of us get upset by that? No, that's the way we communicate.
Yeah.
So sadly, I move forward into other relationships, and that's what I'm used to doing. I'm like, what? We're working through it. We're working through it. But no, most
Yeah.
people that I've come in contact with, that's not how they prefer to work through it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a humbling
family dynamics
lesson.
are
Like,
funny.
well, and I'll tell you, it's so interesting because in living in Italy and this is the first time I said before, is I've lived with somebody else in my adult years, right? So living with my ex-husband, all of a sudden when we would be fighting, I was like, you can't fucking talk to me like that. And then I was like, he's saying what I usually say to him. And it doesn't sound good, and I was fucking offended. So I got it literally in my face because, he was like parroting me because of the English when his English wasn't so good. So he would be like, oh my God, are you effing kidding me? Like, what's your effing problem? Like, da-da-da. And I was like, oh my God, he
That's
learned
strange.
that from me.
Yeah.
Well, no, meaning like he learned that from me, and then I got to see how I talked to him. And that was
Gotcha.
from my family, because we would go, are you kidding? What's wrong with you? You're a moron.
Right.
Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
turns out all those things I said I hate about my family, I was doing to my husband.
Oh, there you go.
Talk about humbling and
Mirror.
like I was humiliated.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a parrot on a
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah.
And so now I'm very aware of how I speak to people. So it's so nice. The young guy whose parents own my apartment, he's 16 and we always text. And so it is really nice when he saw the podcast and he writes, I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
And I was like,
see?
thank you, because I say that
nice.
to him when he does things.
Oh,
and
that's
so
nice.
I'm teaching him how to speak, right, to me.
Yes.
And that's my lingo. And so I've been learning that people will mirror where you're at. Sometimes they'll meet you where you're at. So be careful where you're at.
Right, exactly. Yes.
And this is something we could talk to death and we could help so many people with.
Yeah.
So subscribe, tune in, come see us, join the conversation. I love talking to you about all this stuff. I could talk about this stuff. It is like, for me, mental masturbation. Like, literally my brain.
I gotta go.
My brain, I know, but my brain is so stimulated when I talk about this kind of stuff because it makes me freaking happy.
Yeah.
Makes me happy to know I know where I'm going next, meaning with my health journey of like my mental health journey.
Well, thank you, because it's fun to have somebody to talk it through with too, and really kind of hash through things. So hopefully it's helping other people besides just us. But
yes, and if it's helping you and you want to become part of the conversation, comment below. You can comment below on how much you love us. Okay, Queen.
Yes. Thank
nice
you.
Seeing you.
All right.
Thank
Good to see you too. All right.
Okay. Ciao.